The arteries that are in the that lead to the thoracic and abdominal body walls are shown on this slide. So we want to focus on specifically some of the larger blood vessels that branch off of the abdominal aorta. So we're going to begin with the celiac trunk. And the celiac trunk is responsible for delivering oxygen as well as nutrients to some of the real important regions of the body. And specifically, the celiac trunk leads to the left gastric here. So that's the first branch of it. The splenic artery, as well as the common hepatic artery, which is going to go to the liver. So there's three branches off of the celiac trunk. Then as we follow the abdominal aorta, as it descends here, the next major branch of it is going to be the superior mesenteric artery. And this is going to deliver oxygen as well as nutrients to the intestine. So the celiac trunk, make sure you know the three different branches of it, the left gastric being one of the branches, as well as the splenic and common hepatic arteries. The next major blood vessel that we see off of the abdominal aorta here, the descending abdominal aorta, is the gonadal arteries. So that would lead to the gonads, like the ovaries, as well as the testes. As that continues to descend, it then splits to the common iliac artery and then becomes the external iliac artery, and then eventually the femoral artery in the thigh region. Our next slide is showing the opposite blood vessels, which are the veins. I say opposite because they are returning deoxygenated blood back eventually to the right atrium. So we're gonna go in the opposite direction, beginning at the femoral veins, leading into the external iliac vein, common iliac vein, off of the inferior vein, or leading to the inferior vena cava, would be the gonadal veins. Also, other important blood vessels from the kidney would be the renal veins and the hepatic veins, which bring deoxygenated blood from the liver. They bring it into the inferior vena cava. And then that inferior vena cava continues above the diaphragm, still called the inferior vena cava, and then eventually leads back into the right atrium. Our next slide is showing the blood flow through the gastrointestinal tract. So beginning with the celiac trunk, and again, the celiac trunk is going to lead to the left gastric, left splenic, and the common hepatic artery. You need to make sure you know those three different branches. The superior mesenteric artery, another branch off of the abdominal aorta, is going to deliver blood to the small intestine. Then there's the inferior mesenteric artery. It's also going to deliver blood to the GI tract. But in this case, it's going to be the distal small intestine. So the superior mesenteric is going to deliver nutrients and oxygen to the first part of the small intestine, which is the duodenum, the jejunum, and most of the ileum. This is going to be the last part, which is kind of the last part of the small intestine, which is the later part of the small intestine called the ileum, and then also the large intestine, which is called the colon. So the arterial supply of the abdomen is going to be, as I mentioned already, the gastric artery, which is the stomach, the splenic artery, which is, of course, the spleen, and then the common hepatic artery is going to be the liver, gallbladder, and a portion of the stomach. So all in that general vicinity. We can see on this slide those organs being shown. And so as I zoom in here a little bit at the top, for the celiac trunk and branches, we can see the celiac trunk as the first major branch off of the abdominal aorta here. So those branches off of the celiac trunk, again, are left gastric artery to the stomach, splenic artery to the spleen, and then the common hepatic artery as well. And then we can see the various organs that are going to be receiving those nutrients, like the spleen, the stomach, and then the liver, which a lot of the liver, at least liver in this region, has been taken out. But you can see the rest of the liver shown here, as well as, remember, the gallbladder also receives nutrients from that one. For the mesenteric blood vessels, the superior mesenteric is going to be the small intestine, and the inferior mesenteric is going to be predominantly the colon. So the easiest way to remember it is superior mesenteric is the beginning of the GI tract, which is going to be everything in this general vicinity right here. Whereas the inferior mesenteric artery is going to be predominantly the large intestine, which is the colon. The hepatic portal system is a really interesting portal system, and it's going to be responsible for draining the nutrients that have just been absorbed in the intestines. So think about the job of the intestines is to absorb nutrients from what we've just eaten. Those nutrients then are going to enter into the bloodstream, and they eventually go to the liver for processing. So the hepatic portal system, it's different than the hepatic artery or the hepatic vein. The hepatic portal system is going to bring nutrient-rich blood from the digestive organ to be processed at the liver. So the hepatic portal vein is formed by the fusion of three abdominal veins. Those would be the inferior mesenteric vein, splenic vein, and superior mesenteric vein. So we've had the inferior mesenteric artery and superior mesenteric artery. Those bring nutrients and oxygen just to the intestinal tissue. But these veins are going to take the nutrients which have been absorbed from the food, and they're going to take that to the liver for processing. So the inferior mesenteric vein is going to be the colon. It merges with the splenic vein. The splenic vein is going to be from the spleen, pancreas, and stomach. And then the superior mesenteric vein is going to be the small intestine, pancreas, stomach, and the beginning of the colon. The hepatic veins, which are different, this is going to be responsible for collecting blood from the liver and returning it to the inferior vena cava after processing has happened here. So the hepatic portal system is responsible for processing the nutrients, and then what's remaining goes into the hepatic vein. So we can see that shown here. This is the hepatic portal vein here. The superior mesenteric vein, splenic vein, and inferior mesenteric are going to lead to it for processing. Once that processing has occurred, it then goes into the hepatic veins, which leads to the inferior vena cava.